everybody. Hope you're doing well. Today I'm going to go over your online managing crisis and divorce assignment. This is a long assignment, but we're going to spend a lot of time on it. We spent, I think, like 12 days or so working on this. So please just try to keep up with the schedule I have on Schoology for the week and next week, and you should be okay. So the first part is just your notes on managing crisis. So you just have the link right here to the notes. I also have it linked in the folder. It's pretty just finding, this first beginning part is finding that stuff. So managing crisis, you just have the notes right here. It's like, what is a crisis? And then it goes, crisis definition, has signs of a crisis. So those are right here. You're just gonna plop them in there. So it's fairly easy. Types of crisis are in the table, and you just give an example of what that could be. And there's lots of examples given, so just put those in there. And then it says take the following stress test and then answer the questions. So it's just like, where's your stress out? Like, where do you think you lie? Like, how much do you think you might need some help based on these? Okay, so if you click on this, it just goes down and it just says time frame, and you can decide if you want to do the past 6 months or the past year. And then you just have the little questionnaire, and then you just fill in, like, have you had any of these changes? And if nothing, then you just hit next, and that's not going to be like a thing for you. Work, changing jobs, even promotions are a good thing, but it still is like different, right? It's all of these different kind of pieces. Okay, so it just varies based on what you're doing. Moving, living conditions, that's stressful, right? Changing any things. Like, notice the marriage, it's a positive thing, but it actually is still pretty stressful. It can be a really different, difficult kind of thing. So you just kind of check off kind of all the different things. Like, it's been a few years, but I got a divorce, so I wouldn't put it in there. Still dealing with it, though. So I could still maybe even check that off if nothing else applies. So different changes in any of these things, even a vacation goes in there, at least getting ready for it. So lots of little pieces, different financial, did major purchases, anything. So you check them off. I just did it really quick. I would be checking more than that. And then it should give you, and then it said, give me my score out of 96. Indicates that while you may experience stress in the last 6 months, not experienced high recent life stress. A divorce in the last 6 months would absolutely be huge. That and like a death of a family member are like the biggest things. And huge high stress. So to me, like, some of these scores are going to be accurate and some are not. Like, it hadn't been like, it's been like 3 years since I got a divorce. So it's not like it would actually now, but if that was even the only thing that I checked for my divorce that I had, I would definitely put that in. So it says, what was your end score? What suggestions did it give you? What do you think the results would look like for the rest of your family? And then just relating to stress management. So like this did say, a therapist maybe help you with these skills, scheduling therapy appointment. So that was just a suggestion, right? So I would just put that in there and relate the results to your families back to stress management techniques, communication techniques to reduce stress. So remember how we talked about talking things out could be a good one. Like all those different meditation, there was like exercising, there's tons of things that you could do to help reduce your stress. So we're just kind of tying that back in a little bit. And then second, what could you do to help yourself and or family members? So different thoughts on that. Okay, and then just talking about stressful events. See how I have that on there. And then stress test, the link is just on there too. But identifying, it's just giving you more information about different stages when we're going through stuff. Because especially if it's really difficult stress, we need to go through different stages and deal with it in that way. And then we have also coping with crisis or trauma. There's articles. This isn't something that I'm requiring you to do, but they're good resources, especially if you're going through a hard time right now, for any reason, or your family is. Okay, so that's your first step. And then we have our divorce notes. I have that linked right here as well too. It's just giving the general information. So we're talking about families, and hopefully we would have families that wouldn't go through this, that wouldn't have much crisis, or they can weather it together. But sometimes there's crisis or just growing apart, and then divorce is a thing that happens to a lot of families, unfortunately, for many, many reasons. And so we're going to go through this process and look at this so you have some idea of what it means. Because I think a lot of times people go into marriage and then sometimes go through a divorce and have no idea what it's even like. And it really is even more blindsiding. So looking through, the first is divorce notes. The effects of a divorce, it talks about that a little bit. In particular, we're focusing on like what's the effect of for everybody, but also children. Different divorce trends. Young people, they say, have a 50% chance of living in a divorce situation. It seems like it's getting a little better, a little fewer divorces. It's common in Western cultures, changes from previous time periods, and part of it is used to not be socially acceptable at all. And a big piece of it is women used to not work outside the home a lot, and so they wouldn't have money to actually get a divorce, so it wasn't really a thing they could do very easily. So just kind of a piece of why that's different. Contributing factors to a divorce is background and value differences. So they're realizing, oh, we aren't as alike and our values are different. Maybe they just weren't a good match, right? To begin with, it just didn't know it. Problem situations, premarital pregnancies, using marriage to escape problems, bringing problems into the marriage from the start. Poor relationship skills is really common. They can't communicate. Just find it difficult to get used to marriage and the compromise and all that entails. And personal maturity can go in with that as well. Personal views of change, people change. One person matures, the other doesn't. Financial conflicts are very, very common. One of the number one reasons people fight is money issues. And so that's really important that when you find someone that you deal and handle money similarly. Children aren't like a cause of marriage, but it just adds more stress maybe to a marriage that already wasn't great. In teen marriages, I have the highest divorce rates out there. Looking at difficulties of divorce, like it's awful. Like I've been through it. It's terrible. And for all of these different reasons. So here you have just the different reasons of divorce, and then this is like that little A piece, right? And it's just hard. It's hard to adjust to, like I moved and had a new house. With my daughter way less. I was with her like 99% of the time when I was married. Every once in a while he'd take her, but now I have her 60%. It's really, really hard. And all of these things are really difficult. Some more than others. Depends on your situation. Everybody has their own kind of things, and then there's some resources and stuff on that. A little bit reflection. So what do you think would be the hardest part about getting divorced for you if it happened, and how would you cope? So again, going back to those stress management techniques, what do you think would be really helpful for you? I know for me, my friends and family, and talking things out, trying to find time to relax, and therapy was absolutely huge. Even if you've never been to therapy before, I think if you go through something that stressful, like a death in the family or something like that, therapy is super beneficial. So making sure you kind of do those things, I think, is really helpful. Next, we have how to help children through divorce. This is research that I want you to do. So before we kind of get into the practice of it, it's super hard for kids. Like I know that's something that's still a concern for me, as how my daughter handled that. And it was especially hard for her at first. And my parents are divorced too, so I have some understanding about that as well. Now I look back, I think it was harder for me when I was younger, but now I look back and I was like, why were my parents even married? Like there's two totally different people. It just is I can see that it's a good thing that they're not together anymore. Even though they got divorced when I was like 5. But you can sometimes see things in hindsight later. But anyway, looking at what are 10 tips that parents should do, should not do. And this can be as simple as a Google search. So you can just do tips for children and can do a bunch of different things. Ways to help your children cope. So I have stuff right here. Help your child cope after a breakup, stay involved, work hard to co-parent. There's all kinds of different things. So 30 tips for divorcing parents. Okay, and sometimes these are easy, and sometimes they're not. They can be really difficult, and sometimes they're not even possible. Like for me, co-parenting is really difficult. I have to do more like a parallel parenting based on what I'm dealing with, basically. So, but you learn that as you go. Okay, and then the next is research different books for the different age groups that could help children cope with the divorce of their parents. So on here, I would just, instead of the tips, put books and see what I get. Okay, 7 best children's books. And then you can click on different ages. So a lot of times they will already put them into ages. If not, you need to do a little resource. Like right this one, look, the ages 3 to 6. So I could put that one. I'd probably put them maybe in the 2 to 4. Get whatever's closest. You don't have to change the ages, and they don't have to be exact. But my advice is to put them in younger as opposed to bump them up older. But it's kind of up to you. So you can kind of like search around, and if you don't find them in here in the ages, go to a different one. Like find something else that gives you better ages. Like there, I'm getting better ages right here. Okay, this one's showing me better ages. Okay, and search around, because books are so helpful. I think for kids, like my daughter used to be scared of garbage trucks when she was little. Got a few books of garbage trucks, and she wasn't scared anymore because we read them and they weren't so scary. But it also can help really cope with things. Okay, so that's that piece. And then I'm having you going on to the divorce assignment. The sooner you get those other pieces done, the more time you're going to have to work on this divorce like simulation assignment. And this is involved. It's big, but it can't be little and have any understanding of what it kind of entails. So you're going to complete the following paperwork as you were planning a divorce for you and your spouse that you chose from the dating assignment. So remember back to the dating assignment. Go back to there if you need to. And then you'll use the first part is you're going to use this information. So this first page is just me giving you information right here. So you can read through it, but then just be like, oh, I don't know what that is. Maybe I should look back up here, and it might just be there, right? So you're going to use however many children you decided from your dating assignment, but a minimum of 1 child. Even if you said no children, still just do it for 1 child, just to see all that it entails. In case, I know there's plenty of people that say, I'm not having children, and they totally don't have children, and it stays that way. Like, I'm not trying to minimize that piece, but I just want people to, have to go through the whole process, just in case. If you changed your mind, or there's an oops, and you follow through with that, what that would look like. But again, I know a lot of people do not have children and stay that way. And then custody, this is saying custody be wanted by your spouse. They're saying, and this is everybody's scenario, so at least 50% of the time, they would want 50% custody. If, as a general rule, if your ex-spouse or person you're divorcing wants 50% custody, meaning 50% of the overnights, and they would get it, unless they can prove that you can prove they're abusive or they have substance abuse problems. Pretty much the judges now will do 50-50. So you can't just go, well, I'm going to have 75 and they're 25. That's if that person would be okay with it, then that would work. And you can come up with that agreement. But other than that, it does not. So in our scenario, we're saying that they want 50% custody. So that's what you're going to end up with. Your spouse's gross income, meaning before taxes, is what gross income means, is $60,000. Your gross income is $50,000. I'm also saying you have the house appraised, meaning there's a person that comes in and tells you how much it's worth. And so you have $20,000 of equity in your house. Your spouse would like to sell the house and split the equity. And usually that can be forced. But sometimes you can go to the judge and say, oh, I want the house, and they'll let you keep it. But then you have to pay them for their portion of the equity. Cars, you have 2 cars. The first car is older and is paid off. Its current value is $7,000. Second car is newer and still has a loan that needs to be paid. the debt on the loan is $10,000 and the value is $18,000, that means there would be an asset of $8,000. You can choose which one you would like for the car, even though this could normally be an issue of contention in real divorce. So you might have one person that's like, I want car one or car two, whichever one, and then you do too. And so it might be an argument. But for this, we're just going to let you choose. Retirement values. 401ks are common that people have 401ks. Your spouse has a value of $20,000 in their 401k. So this is retirement. You have a value of $10,000. Note, the courts, if you went to court, they would split this evenly if everything else is equally, and you'd each get the same amount. So there'd be $30,000 total as a marital value, and so that means you'd each get $15,000 if it's a contested divorce. Other marital debt, your spouse has a credit card debt of $5,000. This is considered marital debt, and you are also responsible for it. So just as FYI, that's how it works. Whatever happens in a marriage in a no-fault state, Minnesota, Wisconsin are all like this. Most states are. Any debt accumulated while you're married, each person is still both responsible for, and any income made and like stuff saved, everybody has access to. Okay, so the first thing I want you to do is you're going to split up the assets. So you're going to use this sheet to decide who's getting what, and you're going to write the equity or the value in. So if I was person A, and if I'm person A and say I want the second car, okay, the debt is $10,000, but the value is $18,000. That means it's an asset of $8,000. So I think person A is actually your spouse. So I guess I'm going to give that person this one, and then that would give you the $7,000. Right? So you're just going to, not each of these is going to be filled in. You're only filling in what person's taking what, right? So the house is the amount of equity that you will get from the sale of your home, because we're going to say we're going to just sell it. It's easier for us to do for this assignment. So if there's 20 in equity, that means you each would get $10,000. Okay? And then we have the credit card debt. Both are responsible for it. So this, again, you can fill this out how you want. Like if you're like, nope, you're going to get that $5,000 and you did that, and then maybe you get more in retirement, you can sometimes do that. But you could both have to split it. My advice is you're on the hook for it kind of anyway. Like one of the issues is if you say, no, you're in charge of paying the credit card. One of the hard things about it is if they don't pay the credit card, even if it's in the divorce decree, the credit card company can still come after you, usually. So it's a tricky piece to do this. So, but what we will do, I'm just in the interest of, okay, you can do it 2025, whatever works for you. Okay, retirement value, reminder, they have 20, but you have 10. It actually, if you can do a contested one, you'd split it down the middle, 15-15. And then this next section is total value of other assets. This is in this next section. So you got to kind of skip that for now and the total for now, and you're going to do this. So I have a list provided on this page, identifies which each person will be taking with them. Understand the court expects to see an approximate equal dollar amount between you at the end, or one person makes a payment to the other person. Like sometimes there might be a really expensive thing that they want, and then they're going to say, well, I'm going to pay for this value, or at least half the value on that. So I have the values listed, and granted, like some of these things could be so much more, or maybe even a little less, right? But a lot of times you're writing the value of what it is now, not what it is to replace it. And so that's where if you were like, okay, my spouse can have the shelving, I'm going to put 50 in there. I want that basement rug, I'm going to put 75 in here. And you're just going to decide what you want versus what your spouse wants, but being fair. Like you can't take everything, and don't take everything that's good. Otherwise, the spouse would never agree to it, right? So trying to be as fair as possible. So it's fairly equitable. And then you'll have a total column for each on here. And then you got to add up each total column. So it'll be like your total assets would be, which one is you? Okay, your assets are these. So you'd add whatever this total is and whatever this total is. Oops, total there and there are going to be yours. And then this one right here, that one there, and this one here are going to be their spouse's total assets. Okay? And then these pieces, once you get those, then you're going to put them back up here. So that those big totals will go in these spots. And then you can go ahead and do your total here. Remember, you're going to add these, but this credit card, that one gets subtracted. So on this one, I'd have like 18,000 minus whatever it is. Okay, and then I keep going. So don't add the credit card debt in. Okay, I'm gonna make sure I get rid of those, or I'll forget. Okay. Okay. So again, we're spending a lot of time on this. I have looking at this, like you're starting this divorce piece on. For those of you looking at this later, this will apply differently, but we're starting it later. So don't stress about this. It's taking a few days to get to the point where we're at, okay? So the next part is your looking at your cost of legal fees. So filing with the county, just an application of divorce, costs $500. So that's all in there for you. And then we have attorney fees. If it's an uncontested divorce, meaning you agree on everything easily, it would cost about $300 an hour with like 20 or 30 hours. Depends on how easily you agree. Okay, so if you're like, oh, yep, this is, I think, what I would do if we could agree on everything, it would be nice, you could put that in there, but I actually kind of want you to like keep going with this before you decide. Okay, so you got to each have your own lawyers, and then usually you also pay like $2,000 ahead of time. It's what's called a retainer, and it goes towards the payment, but you got to pay it up front. And it's expensive to get a divorce. It's very expensive. So contested is even more, and I can tell you now, I had a contested divorce. I went to court and everything, and it was astronomically expensive. You want to avoid that if at all possible. Okay. So again, don't worry if you don't have this filled out yet. You'll understand as you go through the custody stuff. You'll kind of be like, okay, I think maybe it's contested and I need to do this one. If it's not contested and you think everything's agreeable, then you just do the shorter one and then give a total cost. Okay. Step 3 is creating the child custody schedule. And I'm going to do a separate video on this so it's not quite so long and you have somewhere easy to pick back up. So this is kind of the end of like mostly the financial pieces of the divorce assignment. And I will check with you on another thing. Have a great day.